What do you say for someone that gave me a career? I was working at it. Tom added his energy and creativity to it, including driving. And I had a wonderful time on the road. The people I opened for and the solo performances I gave and so forth. So I owe him a song, at least. Thank you, Tom. God bless you, and may your memory be a blessing to all of us.
Hi, everyone. The Three Musketeers, Tom Sobel, Bob Till, and Turley Richards. We went out to breakfast many, many times. Tom has always been a part of my life for, I guess, since 1975, 6, somewhere area. The one thing I can say, mostly the impact that he made on me, was Tom as a booking agent, and Marty Klein, who was my booking agent with William Morris, were the most honest agents I ever worked with, bar none. And I respected him for that a lot. A fun time, I went up to Bloomington, Indiana with him to do a show. And I had to laugh because that's when I learned about on the highway. It said live bait, beer, and a Sobel gig was on the expressway. So we did that, and on the way back, he said, I want to have some fun. And I said, what do you want to do? He pulled over, he said, get over here in the driver's seat. So I got on there, we went, it was like 2 in the morning, no traffic out. It was Thursday night, I think. And I drove, I don't know how far, at least one exit with him going a little to the left, a little to the right. And then he had me to pull over, and he laughed so hard. He said, I always wanted to do that. Or as Tom might say, Turley. He was fun. We shared basketball stories. And that's all I really can say. He was one of the nicest, honest people I ever worked with. I really miss you, Tom.
When we get together like this, normally it's filled with laughter and fun, and I hope there will be some of that today as well. But obviously we're all very sad. I was deeply saddened to hear the news about Tom. And what can you say about someone who has done so much for so many people? I won't go into his life or anything. A lot of you know that I met him. He kind of found me in the oddest of circumstances in the summer of 1989. And that started pretty much a 10, 11 year very close relationship, and a relationship that endured even into my wedding. Lisa, I was so happy to see photos on your social media page from your wedding, and it meant the world to me when he showed up at my Louisville wedding reception in 1998. Tom gave me so much, gave me my best job when I was in college, gave me my first 3 jobs when I got out of college, and he would say, "Oh, I just opened the door. You're the one that stepped through it." But it did mean a lot, and I got 3 things from him. One, I got the confidence. I was not a very confident young man, but Tom really changed all that, and his encouragement and perseverance with me, and I failed a lot in those days, and he had a real stick-to-itiveness. I don't know what he saw in me, but I'm grateful he saw something. And then the second thing was my love of old-time comedy. And it comes from something so simple. His dog's name was Gracie in the 80s and 90s. And I thought, wow, he's a comedian and he named his dog Gracie, or he's a comedy booker, and he named his dog Gracie. He didn't name it Lucy or Carol or Mary or whatever. And it was, in talking to him about Gracie Allen, I learned about other famous comedy pioneers like Portland Hoffa and Fanny Brice, and then all the way up into the 70s with, Joan Rivers and so forth. So really got to learn quite a comedy education from Mr. Sobel. And then finally, my love of geography. And some of y'all are going to get a chuckle out of this, but he'd call me, and this is the days before GPS, and if you didn't know where you were going, you didn't know where you were going. And, Brian, I need you to pick these folks up at Oxford, and I need you to take them up to Delphos, Ohio for a one-night club. They make the Lender's Bagels there in Delphos, Ohio, the bagel factory. I bet they make more bagels each week in Delphos, Ohio than there are Jews in the state of Ohio, and possibly Kentucky and Tennessee, West Virginia. Oh, so that's my tribute to you, Tom. You gave me a love of so many things, and you encouraged me at a time in my life when I needed it the most, and I'm very grateful. And my heart goes out to all of you who are also feeling this loss.
Hi, it's Jeff Davis. My favorite memory of Tom has to be the first time I met him. I auditioned on an open mic at the club when it was called the Funny Farm in '88. He came over after my set. He said, you need to work clean, and don't do any street jokes. And later I worked for Tom as his computer guy, programming the reports for the contracts for the hundreds and hundreds of performances that he booked year over year. That is until somebody came in and talked him into going Macintosh.
Hey, this is Jeff Jenna, and trying to pack my relationship with Tom, relationship over 40 years, into a minute would be difficult. It would also be difficult for Tom to pack any single story into less than a minute. So there's that. But I'll just say this about Tom. Gave me my first road gig ever, gave me my first middle gig, gave me my first headline gig, put a lot of money in my pocket over the years, but that wasn't the best part of Tom. The best part of Tom was his friendship, time we spent together away from comedy, golfing, hanging out, having a meal. But my favorite story, and I'll say this real quick, Tom must have hated the invention of the GPS directions. because everybody knew that Tom was awesome at giving directions, and they were so exact and specific. And I'll never forget that about Tom giving you directions to get to a gig. And I'll just kind of paraphrase this old joke to finish, because Tom would love an old joke. So a comic and an agent are talking on a long road trip, and they decide that, is there an afterlife? So they decide whichever one dies first will, when they get to the afterlife, come back and tell the other one if there is an afterlife and what it's like. So unfortunately, the agent dies first. And a few weeks later, he comes to the comedian who's sleeping and says, hey, there's an afterlife, and there's good news and bad news. The good news, there's a ton of comedy clubs. There's great rooms. The angels, God, all the saints, everybody in heaven loves comedy, and there's millions of people, and they're just dying to come into the clubs. And the green rooms are amazing. They have great food and anything you want, and the stages are beautiful. And the comic goes, oh, yo, that's great, man, but what's the bad news? And the agent goes, you're headlining next Saturday. I don't know if there's comedy club in heaven, but if they do, and Tom has anything to do with it, it's run on time, and there's great sound and lights. I miss you, buddy. I miss you already. Take care.
I knew a man had a built-in phone. It was grafted onto his collarbone. He'd book comics on it all day long. Knew every number and every time zone. Now that he's gone, I wish he had a clone. He was the best damn booker I've ever known. A truly great man, Mr. Tom Sobel, a legend and a half. He was righteous and noble. His phone was mobile, his impact global. He cared about people, so he never yodeled. Could name 8 comedians who dated George Gobel. Talking about the GOAT, Tom Sobel. He had a big brain filled with minutia. He could quote Tolstoy and Tony Siragusa. He'd tell you the molecular weight of Bondo and how many towels were in the comedy condo. He was wise and kind, a mentor and a friend. I miss your laugh and you, dear friend. Amen. I love you, Tom.
Hey, this is Brian Regan, stand-up comedian. I perform around the country, and I've worked for Tom Sobel a number of times. And one of my favorite memories is the first time he gave me dates over the phone. He said, Brian, I want you to know that I am writing these dates down with a pen. And I didn't know what that meant. I found out later that meant it was confirmed, but I thought he was just letting me know that he had a really cool pen. So anyway, Tom will be missed, and my thoughts go out to his family and everyone, and I wish I could be there, but I just think Tom Sobel is one of the best people that I ever worked for, and I want everyone to know that I'm writing that with a pen.
I guess decorum requires me to start by offering my condolences to the family and everybody that was close to Tom. I hope I'm not being egotistical when I include myself in the grouping. I first met Tom in 1985. I had been doing comedy for 3 years. I considered myself an amateur because I was still working at the post office, and that's how I was supporting myself. But Tom booked my first professional gig as a non-postal employee. It was late May 1985, and my mentors, Zach and Mac, had told me to call some people and get some bookings. And at the top of the list was Tom Sobel. And I finally got up the nerve to call him. And he told me about the recommendation he had gotten for me from Zach and Mac, and said he wanted to see me and arranged for me to go to Paducah, Kentucky. And he would meet me there and he would see me do 10 minutes. And I made the 3-hour drive to Paducah, and I arrived only to be told that he had an emergency elsewhere and wasn't going to be able to make it. But they told me to go ahead and do the 10 minutes I'd been promised, and they would give Tom an honest report. The next day, I missed Tom's call. He called the house and left a message apologizing for not being there on my answering machine. And over the next couple of weeks, there were comics coming through St. Louis, my hometown, and every one of them that I met, just about everyone, said the same thing. "Oh, you're Marvin Bell. Tom Sobel told me to tell you he was really sorry that he missed your audition." And after a couple of these, well, 2 or 3, I thought maybe I should call Tom Sobel. And by the time I got around to calling, I had about a dozen of those messages from touring comics. And when I called Tom, he talked for about 15 minutes, explaining to me why he hadn't made it and the details of the emergency that took him away from seeing my audition. Then, to my surprise, he went into a little commercial about the comedy Caravan, telling me how it worked. I was just about one night in every location, different locations. And he then said, "Now, when are you available to do the Caravan?" And he booked me. That was the middle of June. And the next day, I walked into the post office and gave my official notice. I told him my last day was going to be July 5th. It was actually July 3rd. And on July 11th, I left St. Louis in the morning and drove to my first comedy Caravan gig. That was the start of my professional career. And I have Tom Sobel to thank. One of the things I remember most about Tom, it was May of 1987. I was in California preparing to move out there. And I had word that Zach and Mac, a person I had gone to high school with, we graduated the same year, had a massive coronary and passed away. So I rushed home from California so I could be there for the funeral. And I remember sitting there during the services, and across the church, I saw Tom Sobel. And we go outside, and everybody's getting lined up in their cars to go to the cemetery. And I went over to Tom and asked him if he was coming to the cemetery. And he says, "No, I got to get back to Louisville." And I realized he had driven in from Louisville that morning and was driving right back. And he just came so he could go to Zach's funeral. Sorry I couldn't be there to join everybody in paying tribute to this comedy giant who never got his true tribute in life. And I hope this one stands out greatly because he deserves it.
So sorry to hear about Tom. What a great guy, a classic guy. I always got a kick out of the fact that Tom was of that certain shape, and that pacer that he rode around in was kind of the exact same shape, and I always thought he exactly fit into it, you know. It's so long ago, I can hardly remember. I just remember Shirley's in Kentucky. Remember that. And it was just fun working with Tom and riding around in that stupid car and giggling and laughing. It's just a really, really good spirit. A good guy in a business full of a lot of crappy people. God, I hope I'm not one of the crappy people. I very well may be. But it's funny, I talked to him not that long ago. I tried his number, and Jesus, he answered the phone just like I had spoken to him the day before. And it was a shock. I got a call. I saw I had a call from him. I said, oh, news of my documentary got out to Seoul. Maybe he wants to bring me out for a screening. And obviously it was you on the phone. Give me the bad news about Tom. Well, I love the guy, and I loved coming out there. And anybody that I know from out there, hi. I hope all's well. And I hope to see you all again someday in my travels. Bye, you guys.
Hi everybody, I'm Jeff Shaw, and in the late 80s, a comedian by the name of Demented Scott Dominion booked me to work a club in Richmond, Kentucky, right across the street from Tom's Caravan room. But I didn't know it was Richmond, Kentucky, because I had just played weeks prior John Yoder's room called Mr. G's in Richmond, Indiana. So when the kid offered me the gig, I said, I don't think I can take it because Yoder has a room called Mr. G's in Richmond, and I don't want to work for the competition. He said, well, I don't think there's another club in town. Let me ask the owner. He got back to me later that day and said, no, you'll be fine. There's no competition. There's no other club there. So weeks later, I find myself driving along I-70 trying to find the exit for this club back before GPSs, and I call him on the phone. He goes, easy, just get back on I-75. I said, wait a minute, I'm on I-70, not I-75. He goes, what are you doing on I-70? I go, I-75 doesn't go through Richmond, Indiana. He goes, you idiot, you're supposed to be in Richmond, Kentucky. Well, I got off the phone with him trying to figure out if I could make it to Richmond, Kentucky in time, and I got a phone call from Torian Hughes, who was working Tom's room in Richmond, Kentucky that night, saw the sign on the door across the street, went over to say hi to me, and I told him about the screw-up. Not only was that guy who ran that club trying to be competition, he was trying to put Tom's room out of business. And because I didn't show up, everyone left his club, went over across the street to see Torian Hughes, and the club stopped doing comedy the following week. The next day I got a call from Tom, Jeff, normally I appreciate it when a comedian is professional, knows where he's going, does his research, gets solid directions, shows up on time. But in this case, you're known as a professional, but in this case, your one lapse came at a good time. And it just so turns out this particular circumstance led to a win-win. A win for me, a win for the club, and hopefully a win for you. I would like to book you in my Richmond, Kentucky room, and I'm going to call John Yoder, and we'll see if we can get you booked back-to-back in both Richmonds so you have a funny story to tell someday. So although Tom appreciated when his comedians were professional, sometimes having your head up your butt could serve Tom's interests, and he'd appreciate you for it. But either way, Tom was a booker with a sense of humor, and it wasn't beneath him to be able to see the humor in that situation. We're going to miss Tom. I know I am. And I was going to come to this event, but I wound up in Louisville, Indiana by mistake.
Well, Tom, you're gone, but you're not forgotten. People love you. And I thought it'd be fitting that I'd give you a tribute on the video phone, the phone from the video that's going to go across the interweb in a hotel room on the road. You know a little something about that. You're going to be missed, Tom. You actually were true to comedy. You believed in comedy. And look what it's done for everybody in this room. They're all going, why? But anyway, this is weird because usually people I do tributes to are still with us, but I've seen my act, so maybe I'm not. You're the best, baby.
Hey, I wanted to make this video from the road, going to a gig because you got me my first gig, Tom. So that means a lot. I'm actually here with someone who you also got your first.
My first ever paid gig was by Tom Sobel.
That's Ben Moore.
16 years ago.
Yeah, I know I presented it like it would be a famous person, but it is not. But you got me my first gig at Bear's Place, and it was an amazing opportunity, and I always loved talking to you. You always had amazing advice.
Can I say that he would be on the phone? If you felt like you were really in show business, you'd be on the phone for 40 minutes, and he would tell these long stories, and it would always end with, "And that young man was Sinbad."
They were great stories.
There was always a revelation of it would be Roseanne. I think he gave all these people their first break, maybe.
You did.
He'd be like, I knew a young lady who was living in her car, and that young lady was Ellen DeGeneres.
You
that
gave
would
a
always
lot of
be
people
the
the
story.
first breaks, and you gave a lot of great advice. And when I got your call the other day, I thought maybe they were booking some gigs in heaven. I was excited for the work. But I love everything you've done, and you were great. And we're so sad to see you pass, but we're really grateful for giving us our first opportunity.
And you're the reason we're in traffic right now.
Yeah.
Wherever you are. Yeah, you caused this.
All right. We love you, Tom. Bye.
Love you, Tom.
Hi, comedian Frankie Pace here. Talking about Tom Sobel. I met Tom many years ago, back in the late 80s, after I did Saturday Night Live and a bunch of other shows. And I worked for the comedy Caravan. Very congenial, nice person. We got along pretty good. And I'm sorry to hear about him passing away, but we all will pass away. And I hope he's resting in peace. He's a nice guy, not a problem. A lot of agents I work with were, but Tom was always for the comics. I always felt that he cared, and I wish him well, and wherever he is right now. I guess he's with all the other comics upstairs, hopefully talking to them and giving them advice. So, Tom Sobel, stay well. Love you, man. Take care.
Hey Chet, it's Chris Fire with Dr. Gonzo. Just wanted to relate our Tom stories. Mine I didn't really have a long one, but Tom gave me his golf shoes, and they're too small for him. And to be honest, they're too small for me, but I couldn't afford golf shoes. But whenever I played golf, I had to trim my toenails really tight. Gonzo has a Tom Sobel golf story too.
Yeah, we were on the 5th hole on his course, and shanked a bad shot, the first shot. The next shot, I hit it way up on this ridge. 3rd shot, 8-iron. He's standing right next to me. I chipped it right into the hole, and I put the club in the bag, and he goes, "Oh, act like you do that every day." But he wanted to play for my check. And I go, "Dude, this is your course. I'm not going to play for my check. I need that money. My wife would be pissed."
Punchline.
Punchline? Yeah, what was the punchline?
I'll pay for Spire's check.
Oh, I'll pay for Spire's check. Yeah, I'll pay for his check.
Hey Chip and everybody, I wish I could be there tonight. I'm riding out a hurricane here in Los Angeles and waiting on my son to land on a plane in the middle of it. But I spoke with Judy Brown. We're hoping to put a similar memorial together for Tom because he so deserves it. I watched the memorial that just happened at the synagogue, and it was beautiful. It was great to see so many great comics and see so much love for a man who really loved comedy. He loved comedy and he loved comedians. He also understood the value of road work, like a boxer needs to do road work. Tom knew that a lot of comics were like boxers, and in order to hone their craft, they had to do, some of these rough gigs. And I know there were a lot of jokes about the one-nighters and some of them being more difficult than others. And I was no different when I used to do stand-up, which, by the way, I wasn't ready, and Tom believed in me and bet on me. These one-nighters were always tough. They were tough gigs, a lot of them, with the exception of Bear's Place in Bloomington, which ironically my son lives in Bloomington now, and he doesn't believe me that I worked at Bear's Place. But Tom, again, just really understood the value of that road work. And when I started complaining one time to him about some of the one-nighters, I don't know if it was intentional, but he then introduced me to Brad Greenberg, and I learned about Vietnam, and I never ever complained about another one-nighter from Tom Sobel after that, or from the Comedy Caravan. And in his last weeks, I have to tell you, I'd started. Tom had reached out to me, and he said that he had wanted to do a TV special that he had had in his back pocket for many, many years that would utilize a lot of the footage that he had accumulated. And he had called The Dead Comic Society. I loved the idea. I said, love the title of it. And, we decided to start moving forward. And, and I'm pursuing it still with Chip. But, the beauty of what he wants to do with that project was all the way back to his soul and his intention that he had all the time, which was to celebrate comics who should have been household names, who weren't. And so we're going to work hard on this. It'll obviously be as a tribute to Tom. Tom, we love you, and everybody there. It's kind of weird because a lot of you stopped calling me after I sold my club, but I'm still here. I'm easy to find, Jeff Eldez. So anytime you're in LA, look me up. I'd love to just go have a coffee with some of y'all and just catch up. These are the kind of moments that sadly bring us together, but we should take advantage of that too. Okay, big hugs. Love you all. Bye.